Happy Arvo. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you guys doing? This post right here, it caught my eye on the old Reddit. Anti-Americanism in Australia. What? I thought all Australians loved us. Actually, honestly, I do have like a perception that overall Australians don't hate Americans as much as other people in the world. Like not nearly as much. Overall, seems like you guys are pretty cool with us, which is I appreciate. You know, there's a lot of people who just hate Americans, and I understand. You know, I understand. It is what it is. But so this post stuck out. I'm gonna read this. Try to read it quickly. I'm a Canadian who's been living down under or down here. I said down under, just like. Anyway, something that happens to me once a week or more is when I speak, people will guess I'm American from my accent. When I say I'm from Canada, there's a sigh of relief that I'm not a bloody Yank, and they'll shit talk Americans after that. I'm not saying don't make fun of Americans or the government or culture, but so many Australians have this real contempt for American people. Am I missing something here? Did the Yankees really hurt Australia in some way? So I am dying to read the responses. Okay, top response. I think most of it is just hanging shit on friends. I've never heard that phrase. I think it's saying we're friends. Okay. Like just kind of like bantering. But there are some factors that can be irksome. When I was living at a res college for uni, we'd have a few American exchange students every semester. One a week, we had a drinking game where every time one of them said, "It's not like this back in the States," we'd drink. My liver still hasn't forgiven me. Okay. It's not like this back in the States. I guess that's kind of, that's kind of a funny little thing. I'm sure people, no matter where you're from, you're going to compare, oh, this is like that, this is like this. In fact, I've probably said this a million times in the videos I've made. That's a huge part of the videos, is talking about, oh, it's not like that over here. But I can see that could sound a little bit like, like the world revolves around us. Oh, it's not like that over back on. Yeah, okay, but that's innocent enough. Actually, let me switch this to top. Is there a difference there? Ooh, okay. I'm American, and I've lived here for over a year, and nobody ever asks me about my accent, nor cares where I'm from. Maybe it's my personality, or maybe I don't get out much. Edit, I will add that I keep to myself in public and refrain from being a stereotype of the loud, rude, brash American. Situational awareness is awesome. I love it here in Australia and feel very privileged to be able to live here. Same for me. I immigrated here about a decade ago from the USA, and I haven't experienced any negative experiences related to my country of birth. There's always the Australian good-natured ribbing. Yeah, okay. See, that's what I expected. That's what it's just like a friendly banter. Of course you're going to get that. That means they do like you if they do that, right? A big part of our culture is remaining humble. And Americans, as a generalization, are the polar opposite of those values. Oh, wow. Wow, okay, so there we go. There's the first one that's really like saying, here's why I don't like Americans. Damn, that's pretty harsh. I mean, in a way, I do understand. The Australian culture, it is pretty humble, pretty laid back in a lot of ways. Also hardworking, but laid back, Americans are the polar opposite, so very arrogant. Okay, so I am starting to get a little bit of a theme here that it's like Americans can be arrogant and be like, oh, we are better or more important than you, which is crazy. But the thing about America is there's so many different cultures. Like, I absolutely can see that, but also, like, that feels like more like big city, LA, Silicon Valley. Oh, we're so important and rich and we're so cool. And at least where I live, in the Midwest of America, it definitely has more of that humble, relaxed, friendly vibe. I would say rather than being humble, we don't like tall poppies. I don't even know what that means. Functionally similar results, but the mentality isn't the same. Australians are not humble. Tall poppies. In Australia and New Zealand, tall poppy syndrome refers to successful people being criticized. This occurs when their peers believe they are too successful or are bragging about their success. So then they're a tall poppy. Intense scrutiny and criticism of such a person is termed as cutting down the tall poppy, like bringing them back down to earth. That's interesting because on one hand, I absolutely can't stand people who are like super arrogant and braggadocious. But on the other hand, also I could see this coming across as like jealousy. You know what I mean? You got to walk that line. As individuals, most Australians like most Americans. I think that's probably true for most people in general. I think it's just the America we see on the news and the internet that we resent, as well as a few loud, arrogant wankers who want to shove their gun control, Medicare, lockdown opinions that we overwhelmingly disagree with down our throats. I could definitely see that being true. I've always wondered, what it's like being on the internet. I wonder if America is as overrepresented on the internet as it feels to me like an American. Maybe that's just because I'm literally in America. But I can't tell if that's why, or it's because there's so many gigantic, media organizations and social networks that come out of America, as far as Facebook and Twitter and Reddit and even, and Hollywood and Netflix, there's just so much media that comes out of America. It feels overrepresented on the internet to where I could see it being annoying having to listen to so many Americans and their opinions. But I also assume, if you're living in a different country, if you're living in Australia, then of course, when you Google stuff, it's like the Australian Google and more Australian websites pop up. But no matter what country you live in, Reddit is just Reddit, for example, and Twitter is Twitter, X, whatever. And I feel like those have a more American, like bias or overrepresent America. Sometimes I get tired of hearing just how great America is, how they're the best at everything, and how they won World War II single-handedly. Wow, yeah. I mean, I do not have that perspective, but I could imagine some stupid Americans thinking that single-handedly. No. While never having actually left America themselves or being able to pick 5 countries on a map, including Canada and Mexico. I will say the dumbest thing that I've ever heard someone say was that they didn't know if Mexico was on top or bottom. As far as you have the continental U.S., they didn't know if Mexico was on top. And this was an American. So there's at least some truth to that, although I will, in defense of America, say, yes, indeed. At least the people I associate with who are not morons can name many more than 5 countries and pick out Canada and Mexico. But there are some that cannot. Do you really hear this from anyone who isn't over the age of 60? In my experience, having traveled to Australia and having a lot of Australian friends, the average young Australian is much, much more nationalistic than the average young American. Australians are the only people I meet who will go to poorer countries and complain the whole time about how everything is better in Australia. You can't criticize anything about Australia because Australians immediately say, well, it's not as bad as it is in the States. Probably, yeah, but that's not really relevant. Whoa. I've never had that type of perspective. Then again, I've never actually met an Australian in real life, but from what I gather, you guys are very, as the first comment alluded to, a humble bunch, But I will say there is a huge trend, if we're talking about young Americans, there's a huge trend here in America of like hating America, like self-hating, like hating our own country. You know what I mean? Which I feel like isn't very common in other countries, which is really quite fascinating. But I feel like you're either one way or the other, and that's a very polarizing type of subject, whether or not America is overall good or bad, especially among people. Among young people. Oh my God, I can't talk. Always assume everything is just friendly banter. If an Aussie bloke doesn't like you, you will immediately know. Unlike Americans, who are so fake and weak and agree with idiots about their opinions until they turn and walk away. Then they say, that guy is such a dickhead. And Australia will be upfront and honest and tell you to your face that you're a dickhead. Now I'm confused. Okay, so he's saying that it's friendly banter, but then he's also saying Americans are fake and weak. This is such a confusing thread. I think that actually sums it up pretty well. People attribute it either to being friendly banter, which I do believe is a large part of it. And then there's people like this guy who actually just don't like America, which I do understand. There's lots of people in the world who hate America. And so, for some good reason, some of them. But this guy's kind of talking out both sides of his mouth. You know what I mean? That's difficult to understand. In my experience, Americans are the most egotistical people, no matter what the subject. They will tell you that you are wrong and that this is the correct info. As I said, this is from my own experience and not a generalized view of the country. Okay. My partner's ex-husband is also American, and he's nice enough, sure, but he is right about everything. Even when you have him dead to rights on something he knows nothing about, he will argue black and blue. I think that's just that guy, and honestly, I hate those people too. Oh my God, those are some of the worst people. People piss me off. The type of people who will tell you you're wrong about something that you know way more about than them. But I don't think that's necessarily Americans. I think that's just your partner's ex-husband. I think that's probably, in fact, I think that's a little bit of a bias. Your partner's ex-husband. Yeah. But anyway, that was actually quite a fascinating thread. I think it is an interesting combination of banter. For some people, it's just banter. And for other people, they just hate America. Fair enough. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow.